business doesn't have to be hard. First off, I think that's like the biggest misconception is like, you have to grind, you have to struggle, you have to also like business is really simple. It's 3 numbers. You need to figure out what your cost per lead is. You need to figure out what your conversion rate is, and you need to figure out what the lifetime value of your client is. If you know those 3 numbers, you've solved everything for your business.
Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Building Great Sales Teams. Thank you for being here. I'm excited about this one. Me and this guy just vibed as soon as we had a connection call. I believe Kachina Goslin introduced us, and I'm very glad she did because he agreed to come on to the podcast and drop some wisdom for us. So today for you guys, I have Josh Tapp. He's the founder of Pantheon FM and 8 other B2B agencies. He's an expert in marketing, primarily referral marketing, to the tune of 50 million in sales. Josh, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, dude. Good to be here. I'm excited. I literally almost sneezed the second I came on your show. That would have been a good introduction. I was like, oh,
we don't edit here. We don't really edit here post, so we would have kept it in there.
Yeah,
and it would have been great. Most downloaded episodes ever. This sneeze,
a couple listen to Josh's highly obnoxious sneeze. Yeah, it is. You're good.
That's fantastic, man. So I was checking out your LinkedIn before we hopped on here, and you had a post on there that talked about, like, in basically 5 minutes, you actually scrolled through LinkedIn and you saw 4 different posts complaining about how there's a posting on LinkedIn, which I just thought was hilarious. First off, really hilarious. So walk us through what inspired that post. It's just like, it obviously triggered something.
Oh man, so I really don't post on social. I don't like consuming social. I think it's the worst thing that's literally happened to mankind. But if you want to know my not so blunt opinion on it, right? But I went on there and I was literally going to respond to somebody's message, and I got sucked in for 5 minutes, and it was like everybody was whining about, why are people posting about this? Why are people doing? I was like, stop watching it. Why do you care? Yeah. It's super interesting to me because, and you'll probably hear about this later. Like, I'm a podcaster, been doing it for almost a decade now, and I've been producing content for a long time. And for a long time, we were really obsessive about leveraging social media to grow shows. And at the end of the day, like, never really worked that well when we actually tracked the data. But then more than anything, I watched my attitude, my personality, my viewpoints on my business, my whole life. And I went, man, I'm just like so discontent. And the answer to all those problems was just getting rid of social media, like not consuming anymore, and just saying, hey, I make social media for people, I don't consume it. And I'm not the guy who invented that. Truthfully, I've heard it said many, many times, but I can tell you that if you want to like level up your success and your happiness at the same time, just turn off social entirely, right? Some people are like, well, cut it down a little bit. I'm like, just cut it out. You're getting zero benefit from social media. It's just an entertainment platform, and you can't really control what's being shoved in your face. So there's my opinion for you.
It's real. Like, this is an interesting concept to me because, I've been making these decisions, these, I guess, societal norm decisions, you know what I mean? Like, I haven't drank since January 1st, right?
Awesome.
And so and now it's become normal for me, and I think I will drink again eventually. I just want to do the year to say I did it because my ego won't let me not do it. You know what I'm saying? But but another thing I've thought about is, one of my peers in coaching told me that he got rid of social media apps from his phone. And so now he only does it when he's intentional and it's on the desktop and it's scheduled, which I have those time blocks, but I definitely consume personally, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those, I'm at that crossroads now. And of course, the thing that pops up in my head was, what about the comments? So like, you post this content all the time and everything. What about the comments? What do you do for that?
So you can respond to that because it's not, so let me put it this way. Like, what was that?
responding to it.
Yeah. So what you can actually do, and what I have my team do is they'll basically come in and they send me a list of all of the posts and the comments, and we comment to it outside of LinkedIn, for example, because LinkedIn's my main platform. But what I'll do is it goes to our Go High level where we manage our is it Go High level? I can't remember. Anyways, wherever they host our post, but then I can comment to them there, and then I'm not getting sucked into the like reading other people's posts, because the value of social media is like reconnecting us as humanity. And that's like the goal, I think, like the big goal behind the founders, whether you think they're evil or whatever is a totally other question, but the goal that they're trying to do is get us to all reconnect. And so, if we make a post and somebody like comments on it, I'm going to see that, I'm going to comment it. I comment on it myself, but my team curates it so that I'm not having to go log into my app and scroll through a million posts. And all of a sudden, like an hour later, I'm going, why here? Right. And I'm highly addictive personality to entertainment. And so if I'm the guy, if I turn on YouTube and I don't like have a straight intention to go to one video and turn it off, I will spend 4 hours like scrolling through crap. Right. Anyways. Yeah. And then at the end of it, I don't feel good. It's like the guy like drinking, right? It's like after going and like slamming it at the bar and waking up, you can't remember the last day. Like it's that same feeling where you're like, wow, I literally just wasted a whole big chunk of my life on nothing, right?
Yeah, I think I've gotten there with social media to where like I don't consume it like most people do. I think my weekly average is, on Facebook is like something like 5 or 6 hours a week. Most people's is like 20, 25.
Yeah,
that's because they're not producing content like we are, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I'm definitely doing a lot less. Like whenever I stopped drinking, I maybe had 2 to 3 drinks a week. And those were like on separate occasions, it was just more like social. And then I kept asking myself, well, why am I still doing this if I don't like enjoy it in my own time? You know what I mean?
Yep.
A good whiskey and everything every now and then, sure. But for the most part, it wasn't about me. It was about me in society and having that drink in my hand. It's like, well, you're Mr. Anti, like, tell me what to do. So you got to display it in that realm too, on the drinking side. Anyways, I just thought it was, it caught my attention right away. And I'm like, dude, we got to talk about this. And I love the conversation.
What's funny is it's not even like a core thing on I teach or anything, but it's definitely, it's been a pet peeve of mine. Cause I'm going like, why are you whining about this with your thumbs, man?
Yeah. I just, and I've been on a lot of podcasts. We're coming up on episode 300 now. Dude, but congrats. As a guest, you get used to the same questions, the same answers, the same, you know what I mean? So I try to mix it up about what's going on in your life right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Just to break up that monotony a little bit. Okay. One of the things you said and when we were talking before we started recording here is I'm busy during the hours I work. And it's probably my favorite statement that's been made on the show this week, because I talk to people about this all the time. It's like, we jump on a call, it's a 15-minute call, and I'm like 14:30. I'm like, hey, I got to hop off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's really important to me, but it's because of exactly what you said. I've architected my life in such a way that it's compact inside of these certain hours. And outside of those hours, I don't work. Like all the 9 to 5 posts, I'm like, well, yeah, that's about my schedule. You know what I mean? And so I love that you said that. Where did that come from? And I guess, how are you pulling it off?
Yeah, I will tell you, because this is, anybody who tells you they figured it out is lying to you, right? Because there's always, especially if you own a business, I'm assuming that's pretty much everybody who's listening to this, right? If you're owning a business, you're selling, whatever it is, I mean, there's going to be busier seasons. And I don't like when people are like, dude, I work 10 hours a week every week until the day I die. And I'm like, that's really cool. But I also think that you're not living up to your greatest potential if you don't make time for the right things. There's actually, he's a spiritual leader of mine, but he gave this analogy. Have you ever seen like the, it's gonna sound super racist, but the Chinese guys who like go and spin the plates on the sticks, and they'll have like 6 to 10 plates spinning on the sticks. Yes. Yeah. So he gave this analogy, right? Because he's like, hey, there's no such thing as work-life balance, right? But he said, each of those plates is constantly spinning, right? But the guy who's spinning the plates isn't going and keeping them spinning because he doesn't have 7 to 10 or 20 hands, right? Yeah. But when one of them starts to wobble, he jumps over there and gives it the most attention, right? And that analogy for me shifted the way I do everything in life, truthfully, because I was always trying to be like, well, I have to allocate 8 hours today to this and then 4 hours to that. And then, like, I have a wife, I have kids, I love them dearly. They're amazing. And I want to give them a lot of time, but I also want to pursue other goals and become successful in other areas. And so I have to watch though, because if I pay attention, and I've gotten pretty good at this with my wife, where there's certain things that I can sense when it starts to wobble before we've gone too far. And she's like sad or mad or whatever. Like I've kind of sensed that to where I can go, okay, I need to cut 4 hours out of the next 3 days of work and completely dedicate those to her. And shifting that focus has made my life feel more fulfilling, but I'm an extremely ADD human. So it's hard for me to be like, I have to wake up every single morning at this time. And then I go work out, and then I go read a book. And then I go, like, every time I try that.
You don't have a 3-hour morning routine? Are you even successful?
No. Depends on the day, right? I have a routine for a week and then I quit, right? And what's funny, because like I have a podcast as well. We've interviewed a lot of really successful people. And if you talk to like the big dogs, they're like, consistency is actually one of their number one weaknesses, even though everybody totes it around as like, dude, they are on point. And you talk to them, they're like, yeah, dude, I woke up at 10:30 this morning. I was up till like 2 a.m. watching a movie. And you're like, yeah, they're still humans, right?
Because you know what? I needed that time with my wife, and that happened to be it. It was a 2 a.m. movie, you know?
Right.
And that definitely happens. I like the idea of having a structure, you know what I mean? But I know that like I bent the structure for a purpose, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, yes, have the structure, but for the most part, like you said, within that 30 hours a week, you know, you're busy.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's for other things.
Well, and I try to like, because my target's 30 hours. I have a buddy of mine. He literally runs a $3 million a year company, and he works like 10 hours a week, 8 to 10 hours a week. And so he's like mastered the art of delegation and all this. And he's very organized as a person. But then what's interesting is like, I talked to him and he's like, well, yeah, but I was meeting with this person at this time and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, that's more than 10 hours. He's like, oh no, that's not work time. That's relationship time. Well, you're still working. But anyways, my point is that he's like, you watch the way people do. Exactly. Yeah. Don't get me started on that one, but terminology does, because like everybody, if I counted phone calls as like relationship building as wasn't work hours, I'd only be working like 5 hours a week. Right. So
exactly.
I also think that it's a fantasy. And the way that I look at life is that I'm a God-fearing guy. I don't know if you like to talk about this kind of stuff on your show, but to me, I'm like, God, you do? Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about it. So like, I think God put us on this earth to be the best version of ourselves. Right. And some people will go to the extreme in politics or in fitness or in business. And it's like, I just think all of us were called to be here for a different calling, right? He put us on the earth for different reasons. And that's what drives a lot of like my philanthropic need to run a business, right? Or my personal need that I have for business growth. But I do think that a lot of people are looking at business the wrong way, and they're looking at it as work, and instead of looking at it as this is my calling, this is what I was meant to do, and then sticking to that and we always say solving the world's biggest problems, right? So anyways, that's like when it comes to organizing your schedule, is just like looking at it of, I'm not sacrificing time with my wife and children so I can work to earn more money. I don't need more money, right? I can live off like 150 grand a year. I'm a very simple person. And and some of you might be like, that'd be like the dream income. But for me, that's like my number, right? But anyways, everything over that is just like, it's just a scoreboard for me of like, hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing what God put me here to do. I'm helping other people. I'm blessing lives. And that's the real scoreboard. And like when I go to quote unquote work, my wife doesn't feel like I'm like sacrificing her for money. I'm saying, hey, I'm going to go change the world, right? Like, come with me on the journey. And then she's excited to get me out the door because she's like, he's going to change a life today. Right. And that ultimately, like that relationship in our marriage it's been super helpful as a marriage, but it also helps me regulate my schedule better. So
dude, that's been one of the biggest hacks I learned a couple of years ago, was communicating with the family. Why am I doing this? Why am I traveling? Like next week, I'm going to be in 2 cities next week, gone all week. You know, luckily my son is now my hired photographer. So he's going to be videoing and doing photography just off his cell phone. It's nothing crazy, but
that's awesome.
he's going to be doing that. It's going to be a really cool time that I get to spend with him. But at the end of the day, I'm gone from my family, from my whole family for a week, and they've known about it. It's been in the calendar for months now. You know what I mean? And they know that, hey, these are the quarterlies I do with these particular clients. You know, and
Yeah.
so the communication is huge. You know, whereas old school dads or old school men used to just be like, hey, I'm going to work. I'll be back when I'm back. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you work for very long.
Yeah. See, and I will tell you, like with my wife, this is what's funny. I learned this pretty early on in our marriage is if I told her I'm going to be home at 6, I better be home at 6. Right.
Mhm.
Because if I was home at 6:30, she's like, you just lied to me. Right.
Yeah.
But she's like, Josh, you could tell me you're going to be home at 2 a.m. I don't care. Right. But if you tell me 6, be home at 5:30 or 6. Right. And so setting that expectation properly. And the same thing with, so I have a 3-year-old son. Right. And so he's, I love him to death. He's obsessed with me right now. Right. It's like leaving. It makes me want to cry sometimes when I'm leaving because he's like, please stay, please stay, please stay. Right. But like you said, communicating it to them of like, hey, I'm doing something really important. Right. Doesn't mean it's more important than you. It means like, I've been called to do something. I have to go out and do this. But when I get back, I'm all yours, buddy. Right. And like, it pisses people off, like clients and my employees and stuff. Like I literally leave my phone in my car half the time until like 10 or 11. So I can't go get it because I'm too lazy to go to the garage, truthfully. But I don't go grab it. But like but then my son has 100% of my attention and I don't have to like, oh, I got to answer this message really quick. Right. Cause like it's just picking and being like fully intentional about the time that you're spending with each person being there, you know, like being here on this interview, I could be sitting here texting on my phone and trying to get my team to do stuff, but why don't we just have a great conversation, you know, build this relationship. So anyways.
No, I love it. I mean, there's a lot of alignment there and that's the way I describe it too. It's not balance, it's alignment. It's knowing exactly what is important and how it ranks, honestly, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I think that's fantastic. Okay, so you recently took on a challenge with your team to kind of like expand the model that you guys are doing in your business, which is referral marketing. And so can you walk us through why you did that challenge and how it's going?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that question. So we've just the long and short of it, we help people generate referrals. So we put businesses together, get them to cross refer each other and generate referrals, but usually it's our team doing the work, right? But I also have this program where it's a low ticket program. I'm doing it kind of as like a philanthropic give back to people of training them on like, here's the easy way to generate like making $1 million in business should not be hard in today's world. And it really isn't. And so I've been trying to help people, especially if you're selling B2B services that are high ticket. We work with people on that. But one of the biggest concerns that people will come to is like, well, Josh, I don't have time for this. And I was like, okay, like, I'm so sick of hearing it. I just have to I had to prove the point because I'm like, it does not matter how busy you are. So like we said, like I'm trying to work 30-hour weeks. That's really kind of my main target. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to get 200. I'm going to get 200 referrals, inbound referrals for my company in the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to do it in between everything else. Like I'm not going to create time to do this. It's literally going to be when I have gaps of time, I'm going to do this. And so in between calls, I'm sending texts off. I have a simple process where I'm doing what my team does for me. Right. And literally, so we're 8 days into it today and we've got 156 referrals have already come in the door from me just reaching out to partners, right? Running the play. And truthfully, it kind of surprised me too. I was like, 200 is a ridiculously audacious goal, but we should blow it out of the water. Cause tomorrow I literally have hardly anything going and I'm just going to go ham on it tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Nice.
But it's like, the reason why I'm doing it is I want to help people understand that business doesn't have to be hard. First off, I think that's like the biggest misconception is like, you have to grind, you have to struggle, you have to also business is really simple. It's 3 numbers. You need to figure out what your cost per lead is. You need to figure out what your conversion rate is. And you need to figure out what the lifetime value of your client is. If you know those 3 numbers, you've solved everything for your business. Every problem is tied to one of those 3 numbers because that's the client relationship. So what we look at when we're generating referrals is saying, could we, if I had to start over and I had no money, which PS, nobody has no money, I'm just going to put that out there. But if you had 0 money and you felt like you were super busy, could you still generate enough referrals to grow a business? Right. And it's free. Like generating referrals costs $0. It's me texting you. I can go, hey, dude, do you have any referrals for me? Right? Do you know somebody who fits this category? And you go, sweet, sure. Kick a referral over my way. I'll probably do that too, by the way, sometime this week. Got to hit those 200. So, but the point is like, I can text you, Doug, and go like, do you have a referral for me? But literally just doing that action every single day, and you ran that play every single day, you will close deals because you're going to get better and better at figuring out who your client is, like who you want actually as a client. And you're going to figure out better how to sell them because you're going to get more and more reps. I mean, you're a sales guy. It's like, it's a numbers game to figure out what the pitch is, to figure out what language works, what converts, how to handle objections, all those things. Cause I am not inherently a good salesman. I'm just going to put that out there. I still have a really hard time asking for money from people. So it's like, it's not something that comes naturally to me. But I've had to learn for my own company of like what language works, how to handle these objections, how to not take 6 calls to close a deal, by the way, big problem for me. Finally solved that problem for myself like last year. Nice. But the point is like how to hire a sales team, how to train a sales team, all these different pieces come when you have enough flow. So I know that's like a super roundabout way of answering your question of like why I'm doing the challenge, but we're trying to prove that it can be done by anybody. Anyways, it's not as hard as you might think to generate referrals. So I'll just put that there.
No, I love it because I mean, at some point, getting back to those roots of what got you here in the first place is, I don't know. It's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. You know what I mean? You're like basically going through that transformation again and reminding yourself why you did it in the first place. So it's like full circle, Yeah. For me recently, the closest thing I would say to that is, I haven't like had to be the seller in any situation in, probably over a decade. Right. Even though I do for consulting, but by the time they come to me, they're like, they know roundabout how much I charge, their referral, like there's 8 months of, content and work and relationship I've built out by the time they actually decide to hire me. You know what I mean? Right. And so I don't really call that a sell. I'm taking orders, at that point,
it's cash collection. Yeah. That's why I love referrals, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. This event I've got coming up on July 12th in San Antonio, the ads just weren't working, and basically it wasn't converting, but people were interested. It's just there wasn't enough information, maybe on the landing page or, I'm sure a marketing guru could get into it, but I was just like, you know what? Just get me their info and I'll call them. Yep. And so I've been calling these people and closing a few deals here and there, and it's been fun. It's been so freaking fun. Right. Like sell something again. You know what I mean? Like from a little bit of interest to close deal, and it's a
fun game when you get good at it, truthfully.
Yeah. And sales has never been really a big passion of mine. I was just very good at systemizing it, and so, but just using my own training and stuff and taking my own advice, taking my own medicine, essentially. It's been
Isn't that funny how that works? Yeah, I had an epiphany the other day with this, dude. Literally, it was like a month ago. We went on this whole tangent to do these events, and one of them did really well. The next one flopped epically. The third one was like non-existent, and we're like, freak! I literally burnt up all of Q1 on these events, and I was watching my clients like surpass us in sales and stuff, and I'm going, okay, this is stupid. Like they're following my advice and doing better than me. So I had to go back to like, stop being an entrepreneur and chasing these shiny objects, focus for a minute on like refocus on what actually works. And we just started drinking our own Kool-Aid. Sales picked right back up. And I went, man, it's like you're saying, it's like doing what you tell people is usually what solves the problem for yourself.
What do they say? The cobbler has the worst shoes or something like that?
Cobbler's children have no shoes. Yeah. It's there
you go. Real thing. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about your business. Cause I know you have, Pantheon FM, which is like kind of, I would say the entry level of what you guys do. And then you have the Alliance, which is like, all right, now you're getting into the referral groups and stuff like that. So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, let me give you kind of I'll give you a little bit of backstory on this. So I built and sold 4 companies. We're actually about to surpass 9 figures in revenue from our companies. And we've been able to do it 100% through referrals. But there was a really interesting point. So it was a couple companies ago. I decided to follow. Do you know who Roland Frazier is? You ever met Roland?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Roland Frazier, Carl Allen, all these guys who talk about doing these seller finance businesses, right? So you go in, you buy businesses, and you basically roll them up together. So you buy a handful of companies. And so what we did is we went out and we bought a bunch of little marketing agencies. So really small agencies are just kind of getting off the ground, had a small book of business, bought all these agencies, put them together, basically cross-sold with one another because there's like an SEO agency, a content agency, a lead gen agency, so on and so forth. But what we did is we cross-sold between those. And the number that Roland and these guys were saying is it'll be about 20% will cross over. And for us, it actually was way higher than that. Something to like 45% of clients were like jumping between all of the services. So we were able to skyrocket the value of this and then sell it off. And what a lot of people would look at that as they look at it as a success. And I was looking at it, I'm like, that took so much work. Like if you've ever tried to buy a business, it's a lot of work. Like in each business is a lot of work. You're digging through a million leads. Nobody's really that good at finding you a good business, even though they say they are. And so like there was so much work that went into it. And my brain went, how do we do this without buying companies? Right? Like how do we like get a bunch of people who could vertically integrate together and cross-sell and everybody makes more money. And so that's really kind of where the alliance came into be. So we find 15 service providers. So we're talking like all the different types of marketing agencies, branding firms, financial consultants, HR people, so on and so forth, lawyers, accountants, all of it. It's like any service that a business could use. And we put them together into what we call an alliance because it's a strategic partnership between these companies saying, hey, it's like you and I, Doug, could totally do this, right? Because you're in sales, I'm in leads, right? So like we have a lot of synergy. So I know you well enough now. If you said, Josh, or I would say this to you, I would say, dude, like literally all of my network is open to you. You just ask me for a connection, I will make it for you, right? And if you would do the same thing for me, we could literally go look into our networks. I could go be looking into yours, give my team a list of criteria, and they could say, okay, Doug knows these 600 people who would be a good fit for our program. Instead of you having to like think of a referral for me, we just go out and ask you for a bunch of introductions. Does that make sense?
Right. You just need the data.
We just need the data. But also you and I already have an agreement in place where it's like, dude, no holds barred. Here's my list. Yeah. Some people will say, hey, I have like these few people I don't want to refer out because I'm working on them. Totally fine. Not a big deal. But now imagine if you can do that with like 10, 15, 20 people and you have all of these people you can cross refer off of, and each of you have 500, 600 potential referrals for each other. Does that make sense? So we've started doing this in an alliance format where we've all got these different serving in different ways, right? So we're all serving the same client in a different way. But what's interesting is we can average like 20 to 50 referrals a week without even breaking a sweat per company. And what it allows us to do is ultimately we become, as an alliance, the service provider pod that they come to when they want help. And what this also allows us to do is that if we stick together as a group long enough, we start to find these through points between each other's companies where, like for example, like I probably teach a very similar sales model to you. I would care to bet, right? And so when I'm talking to my clients and we're talking lead gen, all this stuff, and they're like, dude, but my sales team sucks. I'm like, oh, I know a guy for that, right? Yeah. And he also is trained in my process. So you, Doug, know how to take them right from mine into yours. So they get this smooth transition. And what's so cool is the client success for each of us gets better and better and better and better because it's exponentially better simply because there's a through line. We call it vertical integration. I don't know if that's actually like the business term, but it works really, really well to generate business. And like my call to action to everybody out there is like, stop running ads, stop posting on social media, stop doing all this other crap for a minute, and just find 5 people you can do this with. It'll solve your lead gen problem. It's a lot easier than you might think to establish something like this. We just charge people to do it, right? So we put them into the room. That's really what the alliance does. The Pantheon, just to give you kind of the 2-second synopsis on it, it's basically I'm teaching people how to do this. It's kind of a DIY version. And we just have this massive network where we're getting them to they just basically add their own partners and build their own integrations. So that's where people can go, is Pantheon FM, to go check that out. But that model, I'm just going to put it out there. I know it sounds super biased because I'm the one who invented it, but like I have yet to see somebody outperform this model, even with paid ads, because you're getting a higher quality lead first off. It's really easy to level up that quality of lead because you can talk to the lead source, the other referral partners, and say, hey, this person wasn't a fit because of this, this, and this. This person was because of this, that, and this. And it allows us to build a better syndication, quote unquote, of businesses, alliance, who, anyways, they can cross promote it at a whole other level. So there's a lot of benefits to doing this, and it's something you can literally do on your own. Like, I don't hide anything. You could literally go watch my YouTube channel, watch my podcast, whatever. I give it all away. We just charge people to basically speed it up for them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what every great service should do. Right. I don't want to wash my car. I'll pay you to wash my car. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like, exactly. You can tell me how to do it all day long, but I don't want to. You know what I'm
That's a fantastic analogy. I'm totally going to steal that from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll quote you.
Yeah. And honestly, that's what we did with a lot of our services that we sold over time. It's like, oh, I can put solar on my roof myself. Yeah, I can wash my own car, but you don't see me out there with a bucket and a hose. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
I absolutely do not want to do that. But no, I love this, and I'm starting to really understand it at a very deep level, because I'm part of, two groups, right? And one of them is kind of a cross between BNI and a mastermind, right? So there's education, there's intention, that we track referrals, we track connections. You know what I mean? It's very referral partner based. So you're not referring customers, you're referring referral partners. You know what I mean? Right. So that there's no pressure in the group to like, hey, I have to give a referral, kind of like BNI, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that group, and then there's the mastermind groups where it's like, all right, these are higher level people. They own $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million businesses, right? And that's fantastic, but those relationships take a while to build. You know what I mean? And maybe your customers don't line up. There's no alignment in the customer, so you want to refer each other all day long, but you're not coming across people to refer. Versus this, it sounds like, one, you're qualifying the pods, to have the same customer or a similar customer, right? And then also there is some magic that happens behind the scenes, because I know that there's no way this is just simply happening. Like, there's got to be some intentionality happening, or maybe some data sharing happening in order for this to work. So that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, that's something that you're going to have to pay for. You know what I mean? To facilitate all that. So it makes a ton of sense. I love the concept.
Yeah.
And I love it because, look, if you look at my business all came from person-to-person marketing, is the best way I can say it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's me meeting people and talking to them, or putting, some social media, but all social media does for me is increase my credibility.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, hey, Doug was just talking to me about how to do that, and he was just teaching it on his podcast. And he just did a webinar on it too. And then he was on stage teaching it too. So it's like credibility upon credibility upon credibility. Takes about 8 months, and then they become my client. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that makes a ton of sense, especially for high ticket sales. Because it's a high trust transaction. That has to happen. So
yeah, I agree. I laugh because most marketing gurus out there are like clumping B2B into digital services, and it's a completely different industry. The old school way, my branding's very like old, ancient Greek, ancient Rome, like everything's like around.
Love it. Yeah.
Pantheon branding. Right. And the reason why is because I want people to start thinking old school and being like, dude, if you didn't have a cell phone, if you didn't have social media, no internet or anything, and you had to build actual human relationships, how would you grow a business? And people keep thinking that, well, social media just speeds that up. And I'm like, for most people, it slows it down, because they get this analysis paralysis where there's a million people that are available to me, and they're getting all this input and feedback going clear back in our conversation, right? From all of these people. And they're telling them, hey, to sell B2B, you've got to have a webinar and run events and have a podcast and write a book and all these things. And it's like, I don't disagree with those, but to make your first $1 million, which is where most people are running into problems, you don't need any of that. In fact, go Google the Alliance. You can't find it. We've done millions of dollars with this business, almost tens of millions of dollars with this business at this point. And like, you can't find it. And a lot of people, like, I get made fun of all the time for it. And all I can ever say is scoreboard. It's like, dude, we're literally running a referral play. It just works. Yeah. And like, but I also agree with you that like posting on social and these things can become really good authority boosters to where it does drive more people to you, right? But everybody jumps right to that before they're even the authority. and
Right,
then
exactly.
like, launching these webinars and doing all these things. It's like, I'm going to curse, and I try not to curse a lot, but
No, you're good.
You guys, you know who Sean Whalen is?
Yep.
You heard Sean Whalen? Yeah. Okay. So Sean,
Yeah.
we were having a whole conversation about this concept, and I was like, hey, how do we like attract more people? Like, how to make like amazing content? And he'd grab me by the face, and he's like, Josh, do cool shit, and then people will buy your stuff. And I was like, dude, that's like the most true statement ever. It's like, I know it sounds super simple, but it's like, if you haven't done something cool, if you haven't done something that nobody else has done, nobody cares. Nobody cares. There's a reason I'm doing 200 referrals in 2 weeks. Okay. That number I know will convert social media wise. Like I know we can post that and go, here's my exact results. Here's my list. Obviously we're going to blur out people's names or whatever, but here's the sales that we got from it. Here's all of the referral partners I got from it, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to be able to see the throughput line, right? It's cool. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then people look at it and go, wow, that's amazing. There's a reason, if you've ever watched Mr. Beast on YouTube, I mean, he's everybody's favorite YouTuber. There's a reason he's so good at what he does. It's because he's always doing the coolest stuff out there. He's crushing everybody else because he's like, I spent $15 million on this video, right? And everybody else is like, how do I do this for like 10 grand?
$1 million video look like?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's the first thing I'm thinking. Like, I want to watch it now.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll be real with you. Like that's been going through my mind, honestly, the last 2 years is like, what's the coolest thing that I can do that nobody's done before? And in business, I feel like everybody's just like trying to recreate somebody else's wheel and not step on toes. And it's like, dude, like just do something that nobody else has done. In fact, have you read 10X is better than 2X? You read that book yet?
No, 10X.
10X is better than
that's
2X.
the same one.
No, it's a different book. Dan Sullivan's the author, along with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know the author then.
Yes, so he wrote like the Who, Not the How. I didn't know this, but he set out and he's like, I'm going to write 100 books in 100 months. And so he's been writing these books, and he's had like 4. The 10X versus 2X was literally bestseller. You probably have Who, Not the How, and everybody has that book. He's written a lot of incredible books, but in between each one, he has like 8 flops. Right. And then he has one that just like, bam, it nails it. And I went, at the end of 100 months, he's going to be able to go to the whole world and go, nobody can touch me, dude. I just built a huge barrier between me and everybody else because I wrote 100 books. Anyway, so I hope people will think about that who are listening to this, of like, how do you build that moat around you that nobody can touch? Yeah, I think he's doing it in a phenomenal way. So
I love it. I love it so much because it's one of the things I realized is, man, whenever I wasn't closing deals or I wasn't getting leads or just people, for whatever, it just felt like I can't close a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was typically after I had a dry spell on social media, not posting, but like I wasn't on stages, I wasn't in front of people, I wasn't in authoritative positions. And as soon as I start posting about being on stage or being in front of people or new speaking engagements that I got, boom, the deals come right after that, and it's 100% what you're saying. And then what I realized later this year, because I've been a lot more intentional about the things that I'm doing with my family this year versus last year, we set up our whole calendar a year before, in terms of the intention with my wife and intention with my family and the kids and everything. And then we fill in work around that. And then we fill in the monthly stuff or the stuff that's new, or like, sports teams and schedules and all that kind of stuff. And so, and then we move where we need to move. But I've done a lot of cool stuff with my family this year, a lot of like postable stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that has, when we jump on the call, it's not okay, what can you do for me here, Doug? It's hey, I saw you and your family did this thing, and now we're going to go try that. You know what I mean? Right. And so it's like that, like you said, it's just a testament to what you said. Do cool things to sell. Simple as that.
We'll make it a little bit cleaner. I really try not to swear. I'm Mormon, so everybody's like, Mormons up first. I try not to. Anyways, I want to highlight something you just said though, because we're on here right now, and you have a producer running the show in the background, right? Mm-hmm. That's probably why your show's doing so well, first off. But I'm sure it's the same thing with social media. It's like you're not the one doing everything, right? And that's where it makes a huge difference, because, and I try not to be so preachy, but I really am a preachy type person, but I'm just going to put it out there, is that
You make a great podcast guest.
Thanks, I appreciate it. But we found I was on a sales call like 2 years ago, and I was talking to this lady, and she's like, "Josh, I'm doing like 200,000 a year." She's like, "I am just so busy," and I was like, "What's filling your time?" And she's like, "Well, I post on social, I have my podcast, I have a YouTube channel, all this stuff," and I was like, "You're making 200 grand a year, like in revenue, not in like take home money." She probably wasn't bringing anything all this time, right? And I was like, go do something for me. So she opens up her calendar, and I'm like, "How many hours did you spend this week on making content?" And she's like, "Oh, I've spent like 30 hours, like literally 30 or 40 hours she had spent on making content." Okay. No exaggeration, because she was making it, she was editing it, she was posting it, she was commenting on it, she was boosting it, like doing all this stuff to make the post convert. And I'm like, okay, once like, why? First off, why are you posting that much? Well, it's gonna help me make sales. Well, has it made you any yet? Well, no, but Gary Vaynerchuk told me to post every day. And I'm like, okay, here's the problem. If you are not making sales off of it, why are you doing it right now? Doesn't mean it can't work. It just means right now you shouldn't be putting it. If you put 40 hours a week just into like picking up your phone and texting people, you will make millions of dollars in that time. Like it's not rocket science. It's so like, I would challenge you. Like this is something I tell everybody to do, is just open your calendar and look at where you've been spending your time. And if you're like, well, I don't really know what I did this week, track it for the next week. Yeah. I guarantee you're probably spending 15 times too much time in business, like working on your business. Everybody says that. Oh, I'm working on my website, I'm making content. I always think, you're like, stop for a minute, make some money. Sales first. Make a sale. Because one freaking sale, you could probably hire somebody for 6 months to do that for you. Right. Exactly. And it's so funny to me that people put that much time into it and then they don't track the ROI. Like where did the revenue come from it? If you can't tell, I'm pretty avid against social media at the beginning. I do think it's a core strategy for everybody moving forward. But that first couple $1 million, it's unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary.
No, I mean, I didn't touch it for 13 years, and we did 35 million over those 13 years. So all we did was knock doors. You know what I mean? Like
scoreboard, but, man. So true.
It's very true what you're saying though, because the first question I ask in we call it our kickoff call, and I've already had the discovery. It's the first question I ask in a discovery call, which is really my sales call. Yeah. And the first question is, where are you making your sales now? Because they always want to add in all these other, I want to add a door-to-door team. I want to add I want to add leads. I want to add. And it's like, I'm not the ad guy. I'm the guy that's going to help you document and process what you're doing now that's working, so you can have other people do it, delegate it, and scale it. You know what I mean? Right. That's what we're going to do here. And so I need to know how you're making sales right now. And you're 100% right. If you're at 200,000, you need to be at 400,000 to make a living. How are you making your sales right now, and how can you scale that? Is the number one question you should be asking yourself. So
yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Yeah. You were right.
Well, I will say, like, and this is kind of like my final thought on this point, is that don't beat yourself up, because everybody's struggling in business, whether they tell you or not. There's always ups and downs. Every day there's a fire to put out. But like, if you get more conscientious about your tracking and you pay attention to your time, there's a lot better places to put it. And you're probably avoiding the one thing that's going to make you money, which is sales. Right. Yeah. And honestly, like, I can say that for myself, as like, anytime I get off on these tangents, like I just did, where I was like, oh, these events and everything, it was an attempt to get out of having to sell myself. Right. And when I sat down, I went, okay, Josh, go back to what works, close deals, do the unsexy thing. And I had a mentor tell me this once, is that your success is always going to be on the other side of what scares you the most. And I love that, because if you look at it, for 99% of people who are selling a product, sales is the scariest thing for them. And so we're going to avoid it at all costs. And so if you'll just do that activity and be courageous, you'll come on the other side. You'll come to the other side of that, and the success is right there. Like, if you ever feel like, if the sentence that's going through your head all the time is like, I'm right there, you just need to make some sales. That's literally all it is. Right. It's a scary thing. Nobody likes to do it. It's hard at first, but it gets better and better and better and better, to where it becomes super easy. And then there's the money. Right.
It's so true because there's so many fast food businesses out there that are trying to convince you that, hey, you can put everything on autopilot, automate it, you don't have to do anything yourself, and you can, the laptop on a beach image has been so overused since the 90s. You know what I mean? I'm sure it
Oh
was
man.
before that. I just wasn't
Oh,
around,
I'm sure.
you know?
Yeah. No, I know,
Like,
know
come
that one.
on. It is
Yeah.
not how it really works, you know? And so
No.
this idea that we're going to take something that works, we're going to make it better by automating it, delegating it, and like doing, yes, systems wise 100%, but in terms of our lead gen and everything, we, like at some point you're gonna have to make a sale, like you said,
Yep.
you know. And when it comes to and maybe this is just in the high ticket world, like I get it. You can go on Amazon and get a $10 doohickey, and if you have the better SEO on that Amazon and a better store and better reviews, you're gonna win. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that is a incredibly competitive, almost
Right.
impossible business to win in, and only the best of the best of the best win in that,
Right.
versus giving a referral. You don't have to be the best to do that at
Right.
all.
Well, and it doesn't
And
cost
so,
anything, man. You want to launch a new product, you're talking 250 grand between product development, testing, selling, all of that. And nobody ever talks about that. Like, yeah, you can start this in your basement. Like you can, but it's going to take 10 years. Like, why don't you start something where you can make money today by just being a
mhm.
little bit courageous, right? Doing the hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a friend that's his whole he's a consultant for people that have done all those things you just said, went through 250 grand in product development, years of their life, and they just can't figure it out. And he comes in, takes half their business and launches the product through the moon because he knows what he's doing and he's done it so
Yep.
many times. And that's his
Yeah.
whole business. So
That's so cool.
yeah, there's a lot more losers than winners in that game, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm in the,
Okay,
I
so
love high ticket. That's my space.
yeah. Okay, so you've made this easy for people to reach out. We've talked about the challenge that you did and how that worked out well, and you're still practicing what you preach, which is fantastic. And then we talked about the groups that you have available to everybody. So the easiest way to access those is a phone number.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't ever expect me to do this. Thanks for dropping the number, by the way. So my
Yeah,
number for those of you
absolutely.
who are listening to this, it's 208-206-4652. That's my actual phone number. You can literally text me. I have been
I
giving this
thought there was
away.
no way that was your number.
No, dude, it legit is. So this is a lesson. I'm going to I'm sorry again, preachy, but I was
Yeah.
talking to a billionaire about this and I was like, yeah, like have your people reach out to my people as a joke. And he goes, don't you ever say that to me again. I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah. Why? He's like, give me your number. Here's my number. He said, Josh, I promise you, if you'll give your number away, nobody will ever abuse it. And if they do, there's a simple block function. That's what he said. And I've given my number away. We have
Fair.
what was that?
No, that's fair.
What I will tell you though is I've given my number to like 6,000 people. I give it away on stage. It sets me apart, but then nobody ever abuses it. I've never once had to block somebody for being too annoying and texting me all the time or whatever. They're always scared to do it. And so a lot of times I'll text them first and be like, hey, thanks for listening to my talk. Hopefully it was valuable to you. And they'll be like, oh, like thanks for. They think it's an automated text, and I start texting them back and forth, and we get into a sales conversation and go from there. But anyways, like I recommend everybody just give your number away. It's well worth the time. Alex Ramosa even does this, and that guy has like millions of people following him.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it so much. So last question, two parts. What does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh man, this is a good one. Got to be careful here. It's a can of worms, but people can go check out my story. It's everywhere. But I started in entrepreneurship when I was 11 years old, and my dad had me. He came to me, said, "Hey, Josh, if you'll read a business book or like a personal development book, I'll pay you $10." And I grew up in a construction family. It was super. I did not like manual labor. I'll just tell you that much. And so I was like, hey, I'm gonna do this challenge with him. So I went to the room. I keep this book here at all times, and I grabbed this book off the shelf. And here's why: it's the thinnest book on the shelf. Okay, so I grabbed this book thinking I was smart. This book's called The Richest Man in Babylon. I would highly recommend everybody go read it. But it actually talks about legacy and moving industries. And when I look at like my life and what I want to accomplish is I want to shift industries. Right. And so when I'm thinking about my business is thinking about, can I actually move an entire industry to do something? You know, I'll give you examples of this. You know, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, people like that, right? They're doing it at an immense multi-billion-dollar level. But then you look at like marketers, for example, like Russell Brunson, right? Love him or hate him, the guy literally pioneered a concept that now is on every business's tongue, right? Funnels. And so I look at that, and like, as far as like a selfish side of things, I would really love to have that. I'd love to shift industries, but I also genuinely believe that the world's biggest problems they can all be solved through entrepreneurship. So I look at finding people who are trying to change the world through entrepreneurship, and those are like, they become my buddies. I'll just tell you that much. So we solve bigger problems. We get paid more to do it, but we also really change lives in different ways. So that's the legacy I want to leave behind. And that's probably the shortest I've ever kept that. So you're welcome.
That's fantastic. No, I love it. Because when you think about like making an impact, and you know, when I think about the feeling that helping someone that, you know, maybe isn't ready to hire me or isn't there yet, you know what I'm saying? And then them coming back and saying, damn, this was perfect. You gave me what I needed. This went so well. That feeling is so much better than closing the deal, you know?
Absolutely.
And can you imagine if you got both in the same product or in the same business or in the same purpose, like you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's exciting. I love that answer.
Oh, you bet. I really appreciate you asking that question, because I think more people need to talk about that, about what they're trying to accomplish. Because if you can set bigger goals, bigger dreams, bigger legacy goals, it's easier to make a single business work because your sites get raised.
Heck yeah, brother. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and just having a great conversation, man. I think there was entertainment value, education for sure. And then if they want to take action, they can text you directly. That's pretty cool. Thank you so much, Josh.
You're a rock star, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. You heard the man. Let's get building.